Hello there, Planet Coaster pupils. This is Jason from Sim Park Observer, and welcome to a new series that I'm calling Planet Coaster University, or the P.C.U. for short. Today's lesson is all about paths and park entrances. Be sure to stay through to the end of the video for some pro tips that aren't as well known for most beginners. When opening one of the sandbox options, one of the first things you may choose to do is create new paths or extend the path that's already in your park. Now, there are two elements that are already attached to this path already. One is the main park entrance, and the other is the park entrance gate. Though these elements used to be static, you now have some options to move them around your park, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. For now, let's talk about how to add paths to your park. In the lower right corner of your display, choose the Paths icon, indicated by a symbol that looks like a road. Once selected, a new window pops up and gives you additional options for your path placement. You may also notice that your cursor now has a path icon added to it. There are three types of paths: regular paths, natural paths, and queue paths. There are multiple textures for each path type, but more can be added with updates and free or paid content packs. On the right side of your path window there are two tabs. The first is the basic path settings, and the second is the advanced path settings. The settings I am about to cover work for all three path types, but let's go over the basic path settings first. Angle snap controls the angle at which the paths are placed and are adjusted in increments of degrees. If you don't want your paths snapping to any angles, simply slide the bar down to 0 or uncheck the angle snap box. The maximum angle snap is 90 degrees. Length determines the length of the path that you wish to place. Though it's not quite clear what unit of measure is used, the slider can be adjusted from 1 all the way up to 5. The width determines the width of the path that you wish to place. This slider can be adjusted as small as 13 feet and as large as 33 feet wide. The camera, align to grid, and the advanced settings we'll cover a little bit later. For now, I'm going to choose the regular black path, set my angle snap at 15 degrees, my length at 1, and my width at 13 feet. Now you see when I move my cursor into the park, it now has a circular path included, ready to be placed on the ground or the terrain. To place a new path, simply choose an area of land you wish to place the path on. It is possible to place paths on both the flat or sloped terrain shown here. However, if you choose a bad area, the path outline will turn to red and warn you that the terrain is too uneven. If this happens, you may need to choose another area, smooth your terrain, or elevate your path. We'll discuss how to elevate your paths a little bit later in this tutorial. Once you have chosen a good area, click to place the path and continue clicking to place more segments. To curve your path, simply move your mouse to the left or right or up or down depending on the direction you're facing until the path turns, then click to place the next segment. If you want to change the texture of the current path, simply click on a new texture in the path window, then go back to your park and click on the path that you wish to change. A quick word on the camera. I like to work with my path camera moving freely, which means that I'm always in control of the camera view. If you like, you can change the path camera back in the basic path settings. Your options are free view, which is my favorite, follow, follow and center, or follow and rotate. I'd recommend playing around with these settings while placing your paths to get a feel for what works best for you. To add to an existing path, move your cursor over any path. The area selected will now show a white outline with a gap where your new path will start from. Once you're happy with the placement, click to add the path. You can also build paths on grids. To do this, click the Select Grid option. Then move your cursor over a path, shop, or building until a blue grid appears. Click inside of the grid to select it, then start creating your path. If you don't want your paths to have square edges, deselect the Square Edges box back in your basic options. Once you're satisfied with your path, click Deselect Grid. If at any point you make a mistake while creating your paths, don't worry, there are several ways to fix your problems. You can undo your last step by clicking the Undo button at the bottom of your screen. Holding Ctrl-Z does the same thing. Additionally, you can right-click on any section of the path that you wish to delete. You can also hold down the Delete key while using the left mouse button to remove unwanted paths. And finally, you can click the Delete Path button in the Path window. As long as this option is selected, any path you click with your left mouse button will now be deleted. Be sure to turn it off when you're done. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you may need to elevate your path to navigate around rough terrain. To do this, you will need to create either a slope or a flight of stairs to elevate your path. Begin by starting a new path or continuing from an existing one. With the new path segment in place, click and drag up to the desired height. Once it changes from a slope to stairs, you've reached the highest angle. Release your mouse button to place the path, and continue until you're happy with the height. To level out your path, click and drag down this time until your path is flat, then continue adding segments. When you're ready to lower your path, click and drag down again, then release to place the path. Continue until you've reached the ground, and can continue to add paths on the terrain. If you would like to start your path at an elevated height rather than starting on the ground, hold down the Shift key, then click and drag your path up to the desired height. Release Shift, then left-click to place your path, and continue building. There may be times that you want to change the look of your path by adding or removing things like curbs, railings, and supports. To do this, we will need to explore the advanced path settings. These types of cosmetic changes, such as supports, can be immediately applied to your existing paths once you've toggled them on or off. Most of these options are pretty obvious, but I'll demonstrate as I move down the list. Path Supports toggles the supports off and on for elevated paths only. Curved Slopes allows you to create curved slopes and stairs. With this option checked, elevate a new path, then move your mouse around to curve the path in the direction that you like. Curb on Ground Path places curbs on the edges of the paths you lay on the ground only. Curbs are always placed on elevated paths by default. Railing on Ground Queue allows railings to be added to your queue paths only. Note that the railing style is specific to the path you're adding to it. If you want to change the style of the railing, you will either need to choose a different queue path or design your own railing by using building and scenery pieces. Railing on elevated paths adds railings to your regular elevated paths. Railing on ground path adds railings to your regular paths that are on the ground only. The same rule for style of railings applies both here and on railings on elevated paths. The final option available in the path window are the grid modes for your path textures. There is a large grid selection and a small grid selection. Similar to the path camera options, this one is completely up to you, so choose whichever is easier for you to work with. The park entrance that is included with your sandbox is usually tucked away in a cave at the edge of the map. These types of entrances, also known as spawn points, are locked by default in the sandbox. If you wish to add, remove, or move these entrances, it can only be done in the scenario editor. Park entrance gates, however, can be removed and added in sandbox parks. A single entrance gate is in your sandbox park by default. If you charge a fee for guests to enter your park, this is where it's collected. This gate is also the trigger point that determines how many people are entering your park. This information could be useful if you're playing a scenario that requires a certain number of guests to reach a goal, or if you are designing a scenario of your own. If you don't like the location of where the gate is, you can move it. Select the entrance gate by clicking on one of the gate posts. A park entrance window will appear in the upper right corner of your screen. Click the Select Building button in the lower right corner. The next window that appears provides you with several options. Please note that the Save As Blueprint and Edit Building buttons will be described in a future tutorial. The other buttons allow you to change the color of your gate, move your gate with the Advanced Move tool, duplicate your gate, duplicate and move using the Advanced Move tool, and demolish your gate. For now, click the Move tool and you will see that you can now freely move your gate around the park. The gate must be connected to a path, and that path must be connected in some way to the main park entrance or spawn point for your guests to enter the park. You can rotate your path by tapping the Z key, or hold the Z key and move your mouse to rotate. If you would rather not rotate your gate at precise angles, simply uncheck the Angle Snap button at the bottom right. Once you're satisfied with the position of your gate, click to place it back on the ground, then make sure it's connected to your other paths. If you want to add additional gates, you can duplicate the current gate by choosing one of the duplicate buttons mentioned earlier. Additionally, you can also add a new gate by selecting the Shops and Facilities tab at the bottom. Click the Custom tab, navigate to the Park Entrances button, then select your new park entrance gate. Now place the new gate in the park wherever you like, ensuring it's connected to the other paths as mentioned before. Now here's a few pro tips that aren't covered in the regular path menus. Pro tip number 1. When trying to branch off or even merge two paths together, it adds a bit of a bendy curve before joining, like seen here. This doesn't always look very pleasing to the eye, but you can fix this by holding down the Z key before combining the paths to create a more natural angled direction. Pro tip number 2. If you're trying to add a new path near an existing path but you're having difficulty because it keeps snapping to the other path, there is a solution. Hold down the Control key and the Auto Snap feature will be temporarily disabled, allowing you to place the new path wherever you like. As long as the Control key is still depressed, your new path will not snap to any others. Pro tip number 3. When you have two paths that intersect at a point and you want to smooth out the angle at where they meet, grab your Path tool and select the same texture of the path you want to fix. Move your mouse to the intersection point and add a path as close to the point as possible. Once this is done, delete the path you just created and the point will now be smoother with a more transitioned curve. If you want to make it even smoother, just repeat these steps until you're satisfied. Pro tip number 4. While building your paths, you can use shortcut keys to quickly increase the length and width without having to access the path settings. To increase and decrease the length of your path, use the plus and minus keys respectively. To increase and decrease the width of your path, use the square bracket keys. Left bracket makes your width smaller, and the right bracket makes it wider. Pro tip number 5. When building curved slopes and stairs, it can sometimes be difficult to determine exactly how much curve you need before raising the path. To help with this, start with the length of path that you want your curved slope or stairs to be, then tap the U key to raise the path. If you aren't satisfied with the curve, tap the J key to lower it back down to the terrain, adjust your curve, and hit U again to raise it until you're happy with the results, and click to place. So that's all I have for the paths and park entrances, everybody. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you enjoyed it and you'd like to see more, please click that little thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel if you're not already following. For those who are already subscribers, thank you very much for your continued support. Stay tuned for more tutorials in the near future, and until next time, my P.C.U. students, keep it loopy.